Zach, I remember you talking about the type of coach you'd be and the offense you'd run with motions and such. It was very interesting, and I learned a lot. Could you talk about maybe what defense you'd run or something you'd hate to face and why? I got a lot to say here. First of all, what kind of defense would I hate to play against? One that has a lot of pre-snap movement where you can't really tell what look they're running. So if the linebacker's just running around and you can't tell who's going to give pressure on you, and safeties are moving and you can't tell what coverage they are. The easiest thing as a quarterback is when everything's stagnant and you're like, okay, well, the corner's pressing the receiver really tightly on both sides. The safeties are deep right on the hash. It's probably cover two, and they're just going to press, play the flat, or it's cover two man, and they're going to run with the defender based on what they do at the snap. A lot of stuff like that. Alignment can really tell you what coverages are at the high school, sometimes at the lower college levels. If I was a coach at like the D1 college level or the NFL, I would run 4 down linemen, because I think if you can get pressure with 4 down linemen, you're going to win almost every game. If you can get 2 really good defensive ends and some interior pressure, and if that's all you need to bring and you can get pressure, like, you're going to win every game. It's immaculate. That's such a terrifying and difficult thing to go up against as a quarterback when you're like, hey, you can't block that defensive end. Myles Garrett, you're not going to block him. Like, if you can get someone like that, you're golden. And then the best thing you can do if you have a good defensive line, which I really value having good linemen, defensive and offensive linemen are like gold. You can't have enough of them. They're amazing. The way you can augment and really help your defense is have lots of. So secondary, I wouldn't want to pay a lot of good corners. Frankly, I'd rather have a good defensive lineman than a good corner. A good corner can still get beat. And the way the NFL's going, I talked to a guy recently who said, in the NFL, basically all you can do is play good coverage and hope the quarterback throws you the ball. Like, you got to hope that if they're accurate, there's nothing you can do. Because of the rules of the NFL now, you're kind of you're hoping you're next to your receiver, and if they're inaccurate, you can make an interception or something. And that's what I think Trevon Diggs does a lot, the Cowboys corner. But you can't be very physical at corner. I wouldn't invest in corners at all. The way I would help my secondary get a really good defensive line that makes the quarterback nervous, that makes the quarterback have to move in the pocket or throw as he's getting hit, or can impact throwing lanes. Because if you have a good defensive line, they're going to dramatically make your secondary better, because they don't have to cover as long, because the quarterback's got to get the ball out of his hands, and he's probably getting hit as he throws, and he's inaccurate, or hands are up in his face. So I would not invest in a secondary. I would invest in a defensive line first and foremost, and then I would have people, linebackers especially, do not just align and stand there. Disguise coverages, move around. At the NFL level, you can do that all the time. And the worst thing you can do against a guy like Tom Brady is just line up and cover 2. Let him go, oh, hey, it's cover 2. And just snap the ball. He knows exactly where to go with the ball, because he can see pre-snap what you're doing. Don't help the quarterback out by allowing them to determine what coverage you're running pre-snap. Hey, let's talk about high school. What would I do if I was a high school coach? It's very different, actually. In high school, you have way less time to practice, and you're not going to find Myles Garrett in high school very often, right? It's a lot harder to find truly a good defensive lineman body type in high school football. So I would actually run a 3-4, which is 3 down linemen. You can find 3 big guys. 4 is harder to find. And more linebackers, because finding linebacker body types is much more common and a lot easier at the high school level. I'd still run 2 corners and 2 safeties, because that's just easier than trying to run a 3-5 and have all these weird like hybrid players. That's confusing to me. Some teams do run a 3 down linemen, 5 linebackers that are kind of corners and they're kind of linebackers, and then a safety and 2 corners. I'm not really here for that. I don't like that. I'd rather be able to run more base coverages, and you can, but it's more convoluted. And I think the less complicated you can be, the better at the high school level, because you only get like 6 hours a week with your team. Like, you don't have a lot of time to install and rep stuff and practice stuff. A lot of teams, there's a lot of limits on how long you can practice, how much time you get with guys. So I would run a 3-4, 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers, because I can find 4 linebacker types a lot easier than I can find 4 lineman types, probably, most likely. A lot of guys are short and skinny and can run and hit people. And I would run like 2 or 3 coverages. I'd run a lot of cover 2 because I would really be daring quarterbacks to throw that whole shot. If I'm at a high school level, I'm like, hey, look, you're not going to throw a whole shot every time. Like, go ahead. Which is basically what that means is you're throwing the ball behind a corner, press the line of scrimmage, let the receiver go, and then there's a brief period of time where a guy running a fade is between the corner and his safety going over the top. Now, if number 2 goes vertical, the corner will also follow, and the safety takes number 2 going vertical, the corner takes number 1 going vertical. That's probably a lot of technical, complicated stuff. I'm not trying to complicate things. What I'm trying to say, I'd run cover 2, cover 3, and man coverage, and probably a cover 0 blitz, and that's it. That's literally it. I'm not running cover 4. It's really complicated. The running stuff it's hard to install cover 4 because the running assignment for your safety, he's part of the gap fits, and it's the more simple I can be, the better at the high school football level. And I would rather be, hey, I run cover 2, cover 3, cover 2 man, a cover 0 look. That's it. It'd be very simple and do literally 4 things. I'd rather be very simple and really, really, really dang good at it than try to do way too much and never be good at quite anything. And a lot of defenses, when they're bad at the high school level, which I played at a high school that was very good on defense, and they were very simple because they just said, we're going to run 3 coverages and master it. They were way better, and guys missed way fewer assignments than defenses I played against, I played against the school, Evergreen High School, that had literally 5 D1 guys. On defense, by the way. But they ran the most convoluted system, and I don't care how talented you are. If you're in the wrong spot, if you send 3 guys to the flat and nobody's covering your receivers running vertical, it doesn't matter how good you are on paper or how physically gifted you are. We destroyed them. We beat them every year. They had a bunch of D1 talent. We were a bunch of crappy, slow, unathletic guys, and we dominated them because we were better coached and we were good at the coverages we ran rather than being just talented with, convoluted, confusing schematics. So in the NFL, be as complicated as you possibly can be. Make it hard for quarterbacks to identify what coverage you're in and have to verify everything pre and post snap. In high school, you want to be as simple as you can. Don't make it hard for your players to know their assignment and allow them to master the 3 or 4 things you do. And run a 3-4 in high school because it's harder to find D linemen than it is to find linebackers. Because you're not going to find a lot of guys that are 6'4 or 220, but you can find a lot of guys who are a little bit smaller, 180, can run fast, can hit guys. Linebackers are easier to find, the defensive linemen. I've talked way longer than I thought about that, but those are some of my defensive philosophies. Guys, I'm telling you, I could coach. I really want to coach someday, and I don't know when or how that'll happen. Probably when I retire at 70 years old, if football's still around, I'll go into coaching. I would love to coach. I just don't. Frankly, I love my job. I love what I'm doing, and I don't really want to take the time to try to coach. And I'm not at this point in my life, but I could see myself really enjoying being a coach somewhere. And if that day ever comes, I got a lot of contacts that would hire me. I've been offered jobs before, and I got offered a job at a small college being a quarterback coach one time. And they're like, you can do both. And I was like, I don't want to do both. I have chosen talking about football is a lot more fun than doing football. But man, someday I tell myself I might do it. And that would be really, really fun to do.